Thank you for listening to the Kyle and Tim podcast, where we have authentic conversations that help cultivate a better understanding of ourselves, our guests, and the world we live in. This podcast is about our guests, getting to know them, their backgrounds, experiences, thoughts, and ideas. We really appreciate you listening. Before we introduce our next guest, we'd like to introduce a few of our sponsors that help make this podcast possible.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mountain Mule Transportation, located here in Bozeman, Montana. Mountain Mule is a private SUV and truck service, offering chauffeur services in all of southwest Montana. Whether it's your next skiing, hunting, or fishing trip, early morning or late night trips to and from Bozeman Airport, as well as weddings and private parties. No matter the occasion, Mountain Mule will get you there safely and on time. To learn more, visit mountain-mule.com and book today.
Hi, this is Cole Conrad. Welcome to the Kyle and Tim podcast. Little fun fact for you. The picture that they use for their podcast, I took personally at Bridger Brewing.
Our
Kyle
our
doesn't even
cover
remember.
photo. I remember.
I am Kyle's brother, and I'm one of Tim's friends. This is my second time on the podcast. Today, I don't know what we talked about, but I hope you find it interesting.
Thanks, Cole.
Thanks.
What's your work schedule these days?
Monday through Friday. I'm still pretty consistent. A week on, week off. Week on and not week on, week off. A week in Milwaukee, and then a week back here, working, from home.
How big's their office there?
Big. We probably have, 1,200 people in the office I'm in, but we outgrew that one about 4 years ago. So we have two corporate offices that are like 10 miles from each other. So there's like 1,200 people in each office, and I'm probably screwing that up, but.
Do you walk around just fucking telling people get to work and shit?
No.
Here's the question.
Nope.
Come on, motherfuckers, let's go.
What do you think the necessity is of you guys all going to that office?
Pretty important.
Hey, dude, this guy's Elon Musk's little brother.
Well, that's what. See, so it's funny you say that because Elon says everyone's got to go to work. They got to get back to. They got to go to work. Because everyone went remote during COVID.
Yeah,
I disagree with him.
Okay.
I think there could be a mix depending on the industry. But I would tell me the logic of why everyone needs to be there.
Well, I mean, you're talking to somebody that just said I do 50% there and 50% at home.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot that gets done in the hallways. I'll say in the hallways. There's a lot that gets done in those conversations over a cup of coffee, over, a soda, over, just somebody popping into an office and having like a face-to-face conversation. And then, body language is really important. Body language is super, super important. So that's my logic. And I mean, we can dig into that, but yeah, I'm a big proponent of face-to-face, and it sounds ironic coming from me because I am one of the few people that are doing what I'm doing at my company.
50-50 as far as being there and being remote.
Yeah, I'm probably part of the 1% of the company, less than 1% of the company.
Yeah, and I'm saying it as somebody who is right there with you, and I agree. That's why we've done one podcast ever, not in person. It's because with my buddy Matt, who's paralyzed and can't be here.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'd ever be the same. But I don't know. I just think that I think that's what most people would say. But I wonder how you can measure that.
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult to measure.
Because this would be my pushback. What's the price paid when those people, and yourself included, don't get to spend this much time with your family and spend how many hours a week do you think they spend just commuting? Yourself and them, because it's got to be.
Well, so we can talk about my situation, and then I can answer your question through the lens of other people. Yeah, I mean, I commute a ton. Yeah. Obviously, I commute every time I go there. It's 8 to 9 hours of commuting time.
Yeah, you probably commute almost as much as they do in a week, just driving and getting there.
Yeah. But
Actually, more. But yeah.
yeah. But I'd be the first to tell you, I'm I'm not as effective when I'm not there than when I am if I'm there. And sorry, I'm trying to get back to your question. Depends on like what your lens is. So like, what was the question you asked? Like, what's the cost?
I mean, how important do you think that those 1,200 or 2,400 people are going to that office every day?
For the efficiency of the company, very important.
I think it also depends on what you do for work.
For their family, I mean, I think we've got a lot more flexibility than we used to have 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we had, it was pretty common to work 10, 12-hour days. Now it's 8, 9-hour days. So like the flexibility for getting to kids' soccer practices or picking your kid up from school or taking them to the doctor or going on the field trip with your kid is like, it's there. But man, there's something to, again, those hallway conversations, but also just allowing leaders to, and that could be people in any part of the organization, but thought leaders to drive a culture. That's huge.
Yeah, I think, how long have you been there?
16 years.
And you've been going to that same office or like one of their offices there for that? See, I'll give you a little bit of pushback, but it's not speaking from experience, but I bet you a lot of people that, like younger people or people that haven't spent that much time in an office would disagree. They would like probably say, you can meet up once a month or once a week, and that leader can still, that culture's within the company. It's not just because you're there physically.
Yeah.
And look, I'm saying this as someone who sides with you a lot because and you just said you do so much better in person. I catch myself when I say that because I hate when I make matter of fact statements for myself, but I'll say things to the tune of, I have a tough time learning stuff sitting in front of a computer watching a YouTube video. But if I go to Vegas and sit in a room and my intention is there because I put the time in, I spent the money, I went there, I took time out of my work week, sat down.
Yeah.
There's a different emotional feel when I walk into a new facility and sit with a bunch of people I haven't met and I really take in the experience. But I think people don't learn like that, like younger generations. And I think the people that have been in those situations their whole life, you're not going to tell somebody you're 40, but you're like someone who's 50 or 60.
I'm not 40, bro. I'm 39.
All right. I was going to say 43, but I took a few off to be generous. There's people that have been in an office their whole life and they probably can't stand the thought of working remote.
Yeah.
So I think sorry, I keep cutting you off.
It's interesting because I think what you just said was actually both. What I mean by that is you learn in person. And Cole's saying people should be in person to learn.
Yeah.
And so like Cole can teach, but people teach each other like sitting next to each other, right? Or they're like down the hall and they're like, hey, I need fucking help with this. They walk down the hall and they're like, dude, this is how this happens, this, that, and they show each other, right? I mean, it happens on a job site, right? And so that's how I see people learning. I learn a lot more in person too.
But I'm saying that as someone who agrees with him. I'm not saying I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Like that's just how my learning style that I'm accustomed to, but I just don't think, I think there's a really good argument to be made for the wear that has on a person to spend that much time driving every day, that much time meal prepping, that much time away from their family. And, people could say, oh, you're at home. How much are you doing? It depends on the person. Some people are hyper focused and hyper efficient. And then you say you come in once a week or once every 2 weeks and we have a team meeting and everyone's there.
Yeah.
We have these conversations, but we have these protocols during the week. You jump on a call with these people, you have this group call at this time. I don't know. I wish that it wasn't true because I'm a guy who likes things in person, but I think if people got really savvy with the stats, which people are getting savvier and savvier with technology, there's a really good argument to be made for the wear and tear on the people and the cost of, the facility and all that for the whole company.
Yeah, and I like this conversation. I just want to be clear. I'm giving you my opinion.
Yeah, and I am too.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm giving you my opinion. I'm not stating it as a matter of fact. I'm just giving you my opinion and my experience. I will say that both things can be true. And, I'll just kind of repeat back what I said and what I think I heard you say. The wear and tear on the people is, impactful or something. You said something like that, right? I think that's true. What I said was, I think remote is less efficient. Both of things can be true. And it all, like, what you think is best maybe depends upon the lens at which you're looking at it through. What's best for the company and the bottom line and efficiency? My opinion is it's in person. That doesn't mean I think that's best for the employees.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And what if I wanted, because this is something I've argued a lot, and I hate the reality of it, because even as little as 5 or 6 years ago, like I'm someone who most of my life never worked in front of a computer, and now half my day I'm in front of a computer.
Yep.
And I never, if I had a meeting with my accountant, I wanted it to be in person. If there's some doctor appointments that you can do remote, depending on what it is or what anything, like these days, generally I'll do as much stuff remote as I can.
Yeah.
But I'm the one that says, hey, stop ordering stuff from Amazon and go support your community. Go to the local hardware store, go to the local vitamin shop. We saw Jacobus Gesundheit. They're having it's their 18-year anniversary today.
Yeah, man, they're advertising like mofos right now.
The place was bumping when I went in there. So anyway, I'm the one that'll be like, go support your community. You live here, like, don't be a piece of shit. And then I'm like, I got so much stuff to do. Like, I'm gonna order it from Amazon because it's easier. It's exactly what I want. It's half the price.
Yep.
And I could sit here all day and say, "Are you, support your community?" But how much time do any of us have to go run around, sit in this crazy 10-lane highway traffic we got here and wait for, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. You said a couple times, the younger generation, maybe utilizes technology a little differently, or maybe that's my interpretation of what you're saying. I completely agree with you. And it's what technology's been able to unlock is phenomenal. It's amazing. And I'm only able to pull off what I do pull off and make a living and support my family because of that technology and the way it's developed in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Again, this is my opinion. I'll say all that. And again, I don't think it's black and white. Like, I don't think it's either in office 100% of the time or remote 100% of the time. I'll just say that humans need connection. Maybe that's too. My opinion is that humans need connection, and the word I'm choosing that word really intentionally. Connection is really important, and maybe that's why you want to sit down with your accountant in person. Maybe it's not. I don't know, but bringing it back to me, I'll tell you, when I'm there, it's super energizing. It's super energizing because I'm around people. Because I'm around people I care about. Because I'm doing energizing activity with other people. One of the reasons I hate sitting in my home office. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes back to human connection. And again, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think human connection is really important. If you think about how long Zoom meetings have been around, so to speak, it hasn't been very long compared to how long humans have been around. So do I think, again, this is all my opinion, I don't think the future of business is 100% virtual. Do I think technology is going to continue to evolve and make it easier? Yeah. But I don't think anything's going to replace the handshake and the look in the eye.
Yeah, I guess I don't either. And I don't think it should, kind of like you're saying, both things could be true. It could be one or the other. I just feel I've shared a very similar opinion as you. And I'm starting to see the holes in it. And in one sense, it kind of breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But that's why I want to ask you, like, how do you, from somebody who's in the office every day?
Yeah, it's been pretty weird, man. And I don't know. We'll just take this conversation. I don't know where you guys want to go with it, but it's been pretty
we don't
weird.
go
Like just in
anywhere.
the last couple years, I feel like I've transitioned from like the young, forward-thinking employee to like one of the old guys. Not old guys, but like one of the people that have been around a long time. It's been interesting.
You have.
But I didn't feel that way just a couple years ago, and I
Yeah.
don't know why I do now. I just do.
I've said this to Kyle.
Maybe because I'm 39. I don't know.
Well, you've been there a long fucking time.
Yeah, but take me out of my company. I just I don't have TikTok. I don't have TikTok,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have TikTok, and that's how, and you're kind of getting at this, the next generation, and take TikTok out of it. They were raised on smartphones, right?
Mhm.
And they're second nature to them, and the way they communicate and the way they get their news.
I mean,
and stuff.
you're hiring people that were born after 2000.
Yeah, and the way they get their news, the way they communicate is all through that. And yeah, I mean, I obviously am very adept at communicating through my phone and shit, but it's another level. And I didn't really realize that till the last couple of years.
I was going to say what I say to your brother all the time is, when we'll laugh, like sometimes we'll joke, like when Mark's doing something or you look at it,
Yeah.
you look at a generation above you and you're like, that's so funny the way they do. I can only imagine how much shit I do that the younger generation is like, this idiot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you're totally blind to it.
Yeah.
I know I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah, I don't have TikTok. I don't have any social media on my phone. I run my business social media through my desktop.
On purpose.
It's a personal choice. I know how that thing will suck my attention and my time, and I just do it for my own mental health. But so I'm an extreme version on the other side, and I'm sitting here saying, man, unfortunately, there's a lot of good arguments to be made for things being more remote and things being ordered. And, you could still say, well, there's Amazon factories here now in Bozeman. So don't say this Amazon order isn't supporting the local community, because that's going to employ people.
Yeah.
So all those delivery drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think you have a point though. Like, I don't think, and so it depends on like what kind of efficiency we're talking about, right? Like, there are parts and pieces that I think in person are way more efficient. There are other parts and pieces that are not, right? So let's just say I had to go to work to actually work, right? So like, I remember when I first got a cell phone I first got an iPhone in 2013.
Yeah.
And when I got an iPhone in 2013, I became more efficient. Why? Because I could answer emails on my phone.
Yeah.
And so I was now working when I wasn't working.
Yeah.
Well, 6 months before that, I had a company flip phone. And so there was no emails being answered on my company flip phone. The only time I would answer emails was when I went to work and I opened up my laptop.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's interesting because there's that part of efficiency. Right now, people have Slack and these different intercompany messaging services that are like it's like a text message on steroids, if you will. I think they're much more efficient in some ways than text messages. And so people are getting work done like that, And so I think there's efficiency there. So I think there's these remote technologies that make people much more efficient.
Yeah.
But then there are other things that there is no substitute for face-to-face connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting. We were talking about this week where there's these super long lead times for these materials. And these lead times used to be, and I say used to be, like a year ago, these lead times were like 65 weeks, which is a long time, right? These lead times are now 135 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it is just complete lag. And people literally, there's nothing happening. in the work chain. So it's like you pass it to the Cole does something with it, passes it to me, I do something, I pass it back to Tim. And this whole thing takes 135 weeks, right? The work it actually takes is about 2 months, right? But it's sitting there for days and weeks and months.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there and for days and weeks and months. So like what I'm getting at is like if we actually got in a room together and just worked nonstop, we'd get it done in 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's kind of what I'm thinking about is like, there's no substitute of getting decision makers and engineers and people who are going to actually truly work on it and have hard inputs. There's no substitute of like getting those people in the same place.
Yeah.
And hammering it out.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm curious to get your perspective on this topic as somebody that
I think I just gave it to you.
A little bit, yeah. But I'm curious to get your perspective on the topic of remote versus in person in your industry as somebody that for 5 years or 7 years, maybe now, you've done a mix of in person and remote. How's it work for your industry? Not your job, but your industry. Or maybe your job to start, but like overall, like the macro industry.
So I think it depends on in the construction industry. I mean, there's no substitute for like the actual work taking place on site.
Yeah.
Right. Like or the work taking place. Let's put it that way. Right. And what I mean by that is you can prefabricate stuff in a shop. Right. And that's proven to be very, very efficient. And what's also great is you can get two things done at the same time, meaning like something is happening here on site and something is also happening in real time somewhere else, right? Like at a shop or across the world or across the country. So that's awesome. So there's no substitute for like the work taking place on site with people. So I think there's, you can't tell me that like, I mean, I do this. I watch a drone video every single day of a job site, and I'm zooming in and paying attention to like details on the job site and saying, hey, like that's not done. This should be done. That we should start this next week. Yeah. But that's not a substitute of me being there. Now, I know quite a bit about what the hell is going on because I'm watching a drone video every day. But do I know to the level of detail that like I couldn't substitute being like a superintendent or a project manager by watching a drone video? Does it extremely help me? Yes. But I don't have the job now that I used to have where I had to be on site every day. For me, there's this love for being on a job site every day and this hatred. So it's a combination. I think people that go to the same place every day, whether it's a factory or the office or a job site, like I would go to a job site for like 2 years straight.
Or Big Sky.
After a while, and you see the same.
I'd say your office is pretty cool though, Tim.
You see the same people, right? And you're, day after day after day, like that wears on people.
Yeah.
And I think that, so I think that it can be tough on people. And I think people do need a variety to kind of keep them fresh, if you will.
Yeah.
Seeing the same people on, at work, that kind of sucks. I will say though, that like, well, at least this is the way I perceive it. Maybe this isn't true. I guess, maybe you guys can give me a different perspective. One of the things that I started, after a few years, in the first few years, well, I guess I would say it kind of wore on me really from the beginning, was that like my job was from like 6 a.m. until, 5 o'clock at night. And that's the culture that I worked, and it was kind of like expected. And so one of the things that for me was like, I think that was such a burden to work that many hours every day, because I was there at 6 a.m. and I left at 5 or 5:30. And so, it's really like a, 12, 13-hour day, depending, with your commute and whatnot. And so after a while, after years of doing that, I felt like I didn't have a life. Like, I remember this happened all the time, like for years, is that like I would try to go run an errand after work and I couldn't because everything was closed. Like, try to go to the post office. I couldn't go to the post office. They're not open at 5:30 in the morning and they're not open at 6. And so like I couldn't even like get anything done. Like I remember trying to go to the dry cleaners, couldn't go to the dry cleaners, right? And so that wore on me. And so over time, in the last few years at Clark, I had a much better balance. But we're talking about like how it wears on people, or at least that's what I'm kind of referring to. Over time, I didn't even realize that there was even another option, right? Like this, because my industry operates that way. And I started working at Amazon and I started traveling. I was working still a lot of hours. I'd work, even now, like I work an 18-hour day. Like on Mondays, that's an 18-hour day because I get up at 4 and I go straight to the airport and then I fly and then I, work. So, but I have the flexibility to run errands. I have the flexibility to like, I can run an errand in the middle of the day. I can, I can be at home on a random day and like work on the boat for 30 minutes. And like, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So like just doing little shit like that around the house, I can do laundry or dishes. That's a huge difference. And I would think like I can only imagine, and hopefully one day I do, like that I have, children and a family, but I can only imagine that stuff becomes way more important. And honestly, I think I'll throw a number at it for me. Being able to work both remotely, home, partly in person, partly at home, I bet you, for me, it's worth 50 grand. Like it's easily worth 50 grand. Like if you want me to go into the office 5 days a week, I need another 50 grand minimum. And it's probably more like 100. And I'm serious, because like, what's the difference between like spending more time with your kids and it's like being able to pick them up, take them to practice.
Yeah.
Like that's worth, and if you don't think it's worth a lot, I think people should really run the math and say, how much less time are you going to be able to take care of the things that really matter? And sometimes taking care of the things that really matter is like doing laundry and cleaning the house, especially if you have I would imagine if you have a house full of kids, that shit gets pretty important.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have like some structure in your life.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that stuff became super important to me. Like I've spent more time with mom and dad and you guys in Idaho than I would have never been there if I'd still been working at Clark.
Yeah.
I literally, you're probably talking in the last 5 years. That's many times I would have went to Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I can relate.
So I would have never, no time off, couldn't work remotely on a Friday and be at the lake house.
Yeah.
That would have never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate.
And I would have spent a lot of money on flights getting there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, you could add that up and be like, well, there's 50 grand right there.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
In my own life, it's one of the things I weigh and balance as I assess what's next for me. The weeks I'm here in Bozeman, I got it pretty fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
I get to be with my kids in the morning before they go to school and have breakfast with them. I get to pick them up from school. I can, go run errands with them, to your point. Today I waxed my Land Cruiser. I spent an hour and a half waxing my Land Cruiser during the workday because I didn't have anything going on and I needed to get out of my home office. So, yeah.
Or like the other day, you pressure wash the, like you couldn't have done that.
Right.
Like if you were working at 12 hours a day in the office.
Did I see you last night or 2 nights ago?
2 nights ago.
So back to Alex Hormozy. He was saying he was just on Chris Williamson's podcast for 4 hours. if you need 4 hours to kill listening to a podcast,
It's pretty good.
it took me quite a few days to get through it, but
Yeah.
would recommend. He said what's really interesting when you get around people with wealth and people that start to make money, and he said sometimes it's not like, he said he's spent time around billionaires, but not even the billionaires, just people making $500,000 a year, is they don't know how to intelligently spend their money. And he's like, and what I mean by that is one of the most important things you can buy back is time.
Yeah.
And he said, for about $1,500 a month, you can buy yourself about 90 hours back. And he's like, laundry, meal prep, travel, fuel. He's like, you just that alone, having someone to, and that's on the low end.
What do you mean by travel and fuel?
Well, like, if you drive everywhere, so now at some point you got to get a car. So figuring that time, you got to make sure it's registered. You got to buy the fuel for it. You got to take the time to drive it. When you're driving, you now can't work. And how much are you worth an hour? You know what I mean? If you're making $1 million a year, your hourly value is very high. So you're like, if I pay a driver, what if a CEO says I'm going to pay a driver to drive me to Big Sky, and it's going to be $500, but he's got a car it's got Starlink in it, so he can work the entire time. He doesn't have to think about anything. And I'm thinking about this from my business perspective, because this is a business model I'm going with. There's food in the car, meals, and everything he needs. Doesn't have to think about it. Sits down, gets on his computer, has a work call, does whatever. His time's worth.
Eats lunch.
Yeah, and his time's worth, $20,000 for that hour. What he can accomplish? It's $500. And some people are like, oh man, I'm not paying $500 for a car. Like, I'll get a rental car and wait in the rental car line for an hour and drive myself. Like, you just lost 4 hours. Like, you just lost $80,000.
Yeah.
But that's what he's saying is people don't think about that. But you could think about it because I know I'm guilty of this too. It's easy for me to point out a CEO making millions, but how much shit do I do? Saying this last night because I'm asking Kyle about drywall. I'm saying this to my girlfriend. I'm like, well, I'll just fix these patches of drywall in the, you know what I mean? And I'm not at a point where I'm making crazy amounts of money. Really probably does save me some right now. But how much could I just take some of the money that I make, buy myself so much more time, put it back into my business?
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah. I hadn't heard it phrased like this or thought about it before. And I'm like, yeah, there's a time where my value is so much better off somewhere else than washing dishes and making meals and doing laundry. And
I completely agree with that. But since you and I are on the train here of maybe disagreeing with each other in this podcast between remote work and in-person work, let's keep disagreeing.
Because I think I think we agree. Yeah.
I actually do think we agree. And I think you'll probably agree with this too, but if you don't, that's totally fine. I don't cut my own lawn.
Okay.
I don't cut my own lawn because I tried to do it when I first moved here. And guess how fucking long the lawn got? Really fucking long. So I found a company to cut it.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you?
To cut the lawn?
Yeah.
Oh, let's say 45 minutes.
That's it? Front and back?
Maybe an hour.
Okay.
I don't know, an hour. But I miss cutting the lawn. And I just waxed my car today. I really enjoyed that. And I do my own laundry. Emily doesn't do my laundry. I don't have any interest in paying someone to do my laundry. It takes me 10 minutes a week. I'm not the one. The washing machine does all the work, right?
You put it in and take it out.
And there's, for me personally, there's some therapeutic value. And I feel accomplished when I do those tasks. Wax the car or pull the weeds or mow the lawn. I don't mow the lawn.
You don't mow the lawn because you don't have time to mow the lawn and it gets really long.
That's what he's saying, right? He's saying like your time's worth something. And I pay somebody to mow.
You don't mow the lawn because it gets too long and then you don't like that it gets too long.
No, I don't mow the lawn because it takes time away from my family.
Yeah, okay.
That's what you're talking about. So I completely agree with that, but I miss mowing the lawn. And I want to mow the lawn. And I'm going to mow the lawn. I'm going to get back to it at some point.
I'll tell you something funny.
And so like I agree with you to a point, but if you outsource everything that takes time, for me, that takes away some of the therapeutic time that's important. And I'll come back to connection. I think it's really important for me to stay connected to the things that are part of life, daily tasks, weekly tasks. And I've been close to a handful of people, CEOs that you're talking about that make $1 million plus a year, that are disconnected from reality. And it's a dangerous place to be from my view. So I agree with you to a point.
Somebody else mows the lawn. Somebody else waxes the car.
Somebody else gets them to Starbucks. And hey, I want my Starbucks here when I wake up at 8:30. And if it's not here at 8:31 and it's not the perfect temperature with the perfect amount of cream and the perfect amount of sugar, you're fucking fired. So I agree with you to a point, but there's a limit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll tell you two things of that. First, my girlfriend lives down in Gateway, rents a really nice log home, has a roommate. Roommate was out of town all last week. She's going to be moving out of there in the next month or two. But the roommate said, hey, can you mow the lawn this week that I'm gone? And they hadn't mowed it once. It was like overgrown, just two girls. Anyway, I digress. So I was like, I'll give you a hand. I got that nice Milwaukee weed whacker. And I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, should I do this? Because I know there's a lot of shit I could do. And I'm like, this lawn's going to look so fucking nice when I get done. And I'm going to feel so good. I weed whacked everything. I mowed everything with a push mower. And I was like, I'm only going to do the half. I'm like, I got to do the whole thing now. And I'm like, it was one of the more satisfying things I've done in the last couple of weeks. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. But I'm someone who grew up working with my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's why I keep saying, like, it's my opinion. It's just my opinion that for me, I don't want to I've outsourced too much in my life already. I don't want to outsource much more of it.
Yeah. I think it's really what it would come down to is you sit down and you say, what's most important to me financially, emotionally, and then, does this give me more time with my kids?
Yeah.
There's also I think there's a big difference of having a choice. If you don't have a choice to outsource something, and so if you don't have a choice and you don't have the time, when I say you don't have a choice, maybe let's just say it's financial. You can't afford to pay somebody to mow your lawn. If that's a situation and you don't have the time, that's a fucked up situation.
It's a privilege to have a choice, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so last year, it was really like a year and a half ago now, I rebuilt the whole front end on the FJ, and it took me 4 times. I literally tore apart the whole front end on both sides 4 times because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, right?
Yeah.
So it took me 5 or 6 weeks of the thing on jack stands, right? But I did it because I was like, well, yeah, I could have paid a shop to do all this and take it and do it all, but I was like, I have the time. And I want to learn how to do it. And so it took me a long time, and there were a bunch of parts being ordered in between there. But I'm really glad I did it because I've gotten away from doing all that stuff because I've been working for the last 15 years. And when's the last time I've taken shit apart by myself and put it all back together? I suck at being a mechanic. I'm worse at being a mechanic now than when I was at 18 or 19 years old. Because when I was 19, we kind of did stuff around the house and in the garage and with Dad. I'm terrible at that stuff now. It's because I've gotten away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tim, I don't know, you brought this up. I don't know where you were headed with it. I think through the lens of managing a business and spending your time where it's most impactful, I fucking couldn't agree more with you. But I just was speaking about, for me personally, outside of work, that's where I was coming from. I think when you talk about a business, especially as an owner of a business or a leader in a business, you have to constantly be asking yourself, what's the best use of my time, for sure.
Yeah. And if you don't know, there's if you can't tell, there's sort of a conflict when I say it, because I hear what he's saying. And I'm also like, I want to mow this lawn at my girlfriend's house that I'm not going to get paid for and does nothing to me, because I know the human experience.
Yeah.
Being able to look at something I did and like, damn, that looks good.
Yeah.
I think because you were saying if people don't have the money or the time,
Yeah,
I think what he's saying is they don't realize
that they have the money or time.
that they have the choice.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah,
do
yeah.
have the money, and they just don't realize. Oh, like half of this monotonous bullshit stuff. Maybe some of it's therapeutic, like you're saying. And I agree, and some of it's, why am I doing this? Why, don't I work so hard for all this money so I can have a little more time to, go out on the town or spend time with my family? Or anyway, I think that's what he's pointing to.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, I would agree. I would say it depends on your situation, your situation in life, and probably it changes at times. Like ordering things on Amazon. I love it when I'm on the road and I'm not going to be home for 3 days, but I need that thing when I get home. Like it could be toilet paper, right? It could be like
Yeah, because you got to take a shit.
whatever, cleaning supplies, whatever it is. Like it's like, oh shit, I need that, and when I get home, I'm going to need it, right? And so like I love ordering it, and then I get home and it's there, right? And I'm like, dude, did I drive 20 minutes and go to the store and take another 10 minutes there and then drive back? Like, no, I didn't. And so that saved me 40 minutes.
I couldn't agree more.
Those kinds of things. Now, somebody else might enjoy going to the store and they love wandering around. I fucking hate the stores. Like, I don't like going to the grocery store. I don't like going to Target. I don't like going to Walmart.
Do you guys know Home Depot will deliver shit same day from the store? Did you know that? I've been doing that a lot lately.
No, I didn't know that actually.
So I'll be sitting, on a meeting or something in my office.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, man, I need to do
because you're gonna do something.
I need to do some sprinkler shit.
Yeah.
Like I got a sprinkler that's fucked up. I'll order the part and Home Depot will deliver it while I'm just sitting there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For free.
Right? So somebody else wants to go to Home Depot and wander around. I don't.
Yeah.
Like now maybe later in life, maybe I will want to wander around Home Depot. So I should go to the store. But now I don't like to. I'd rather I don't know. I just would rather get the shit done right away. So I think there's probably room for both. Like my dad, case in point, right? Well, and this is like, how many times did we when we were working in that fucking garage? Like, how many times did he go back and forth to the store for unnecessary shit? Well, that's just how he likes to do it. Fine, okay, but you could have just got 4 boxes of nails instead of 2, because we needed 4.
Yeah. What time is it, Tim?
20 after.
Okay, I got about 15 more minutes, and I got to jam out.
I had a thought. I was
maybe 20.
Whatever.
Max. I was thinking of this today because I was listening to a podcast that I did with Brian from Warriors and Quiet Waters.
I didn't listen to that one.
He has a very when you ask him what they do, he's got it dialed. He knows their mission. He knows their values, and
I think I saw him on TMJ4. TMJ, not TMJ. Whatever, the news. Anyway,
he believes in it, and it as a post-combat vet, and he said, he'll say so much in 5 minutes. I'm like, man, there's 4 different things I want to ask him there. I'm like, I might have to start taking notes when I talk to people, because there's something I wanted to bring this up 15 minutes ago. So I don't know if people do that when they're having conversation, is take notes, but I thought of this before, so I'm glad it came back to me. But we were talking about, should somebody go into the office or not?
Yeah.
Kyle, you told me about this, that you read this book. I've heard you talk about it a couple times, about the way everyone used to live on a homestead or a family farm. So the kids would grow up with the parents, and the parents would be there on the farm working. So you're raised by both your parents.
Yeah.
And then
Iron John.
So yeah, now this model's totally changed because everyone goes to a factory now.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids,
they go to work.
Yeah. Boys and girls are being raised by probably predominantly by their mother, and then, by the school.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about this, should everyone go into an office or not, or should they stay home? And then I thought this was very funny. There's a gal that's managing this kiln center that's going to open where the old Town and Country was.
Right by my house.
Yeah, funny is not the right word, but ironic.
Kiln.
So kiln is the name of it's a big
it's a co-working space. They're taking the old
okay.
Town and Country and turning it into a co-working space.
Okay.
So there's 10 or 15 of these on the west side of the country. And I was thinking when I was sitting in that, listening to that presentation, it's kind of interesting because we have these big offices, and then they just sort of vanished really more or less around COVID. Nobody needed these offices. And now you're talking about connection. So we're building these co-working spaces for everyone that works independently so they can come together. But like if you look at the circle of like the human progression, because the kids were home with their parents, now the kids can be home with their parents again because their parents can work at home. But at the same time, their parents or everyone's still looking for that community and connection. And like you kind of see this weird pattern playing out through the last, I don't know, 150 years, 200 years. It's interesting.
It's interesting. So I'm reading a book right now. Actually, I was reading this chapter last night. It's a different book, but it talks about kind of the same piece. So it's kind of just funny that you brought that up. So Iron John was a book about it's an old story about a boy who kind of goes through this like life cycle of becoming a man and what that's like. So in that story, his father was absent for much of his life because his father was working at a factory. And maybe I'm misremembering that, but either way, what this is actually talking about is now like their father was absent, and so they were raised by their teachers at school or by their mothers. Now, what's interesting in the last, call it 40 years, about 40, 45 years, is mom and dad have worked. And so now there's even a different dynamic, is that the children aren't raised by their parents, and their children are raised by somebody else, likely their teacher. And so it's interesting of like now I think we're actually seeing that trend change again, right? And parents are wanting to stay home more. And so I think we're going to see, well, parents do want to raise their kids, right? And there's this rise of homeschooling, right? So people are kind of trending more into homeschooling. It's still a small trend, but it's interesting. I think people are kind of going. It goes kind of maybe back to different connections. So before they were connecting at the office, mom and dad were connecting with people in the office. Now they're coming back home and they're saying, no, I want to connect with my own internal family and my community. And so that's kind of interesting. And maybe that's because technology is pushing us in a direction where like we're being less and less connected in some ways, some more and more connected, but I don't know. So this kind of two things can be true at the same time. It's like we keep talking about this like internet connection, and that is true. That's a fact. We are connecting all over the internet more. I don't know that that's the right type of connection. Depending on what you're doing on the internet, I guess. I don't know. Maybe some people are having great experiences on the internet. I don't know.
Do you guys know what the slogan for Mountain Mule Media is? Connecting Montana. And it's literally sitting down with the business owners or the business reps and, hey, let's sit down face to face. Tell me what you do. Like people would love to see the owner and hear why you started this and maybe give half a shit about what you do and why versus, hey, it's another box from Amazon on my porch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you feel a real connection to the owner.
Yeah.
I was talking with about this morning and she's like, if people know the story of your brand, they're like, they'll be your client for life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I know that guy. Like he did this, that, and this is how we got here. And I'll buy his shit forever because I get why he's doing it and it matters. Anyway, just seeing that, like the human behavior. You remember Serini on that podcast because he say, I don't know if he said that they were homeschooling his.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. A daughter, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I interviewed a guy yesterday to drive for me. His wife works full time. She has a good job here at the university.
Sorry, they're not homeschooling. She goes to a private school.
Okay. His wife's working Monday through Friday, has a good job. He's staying home with their daughter because they decided they didn't want their kids going to daycare because they didn't want someone else to raise their daughter. But he's like, yeah, man, I'm trying to find something I can work, outside of 8 to 4 and the weekends. So he's like having basically a reverse work schedule. We're trying to find one.
It is interesting. Like it depends on, it literally depends like individually from teacher to teacher to teacher, but like it is interesting of like, I think it's important. Like, what are they being taught in school? And I don't mean like what the curriculum is. Well, I take it back. I do mean what the curriculum is, but I also mean like, who is that person, right? Like, what mindset are they adopting? Are they adopting like, this like extreme victim mindset? Maybe. Are they adopting like a healthy, independent and like self-reliant, uh, you know, mindset from their teacher? I don't know, right? Like, and it literally depends. Like, who is your teacher? Like, who is that person? And I think I'm generalizing things, but I do think it's true. Unfortunately, we live in a place across, it's all across the U.S. is that we don't pay teachers well enough, because I don't think we value what they do enough as a society. And generally, teachers have been falling to the bottom of society from a financial standpoint. And so I think teachers' psychology, like, where is their general psychology? I think, unfortunately, it's in a scarcity mindset. And so they're teaching kids the same mindset.
Yeah, they're almost not even, you can't blame them for being in a scarcity mindset.
Of course, they don't make
40
shit,
grand a year.
right? And so what I'm getting at is like, I don't have kids, but when I do, I don't want to teach them to be scared. I want to teach them to be confident and self-reliant and,
Well,
so anyway, I guess, and that's not the teacher's fault. Like, that's who they are, right? Like, I'm not blaming it on them.
Tim, are you trying to stab somebody?
no, it's just so funny because I like fidget with this thing all the time. Yeah, and Cole, you can stand up and slap either of us whenever you want, because me and Kyle don't have kids. So who the hell are we?
No, I don't have any reason to do that.
Well, yeah, it's just we're talking hypothetically.
You guys were kids once.
Fair, but still.
I'm still a kid, dude.
What time is it, Tim?
4:31. Let me make this one point, because maybe it's
What do you think,
maybe
Cole?
it's relevant.
What do I think about what?
These kids and shit, dude. You got kids.
What does that say about us as a society? If I'm the one saying, let's prioritize the connection, with the business owners, with everyone. So we prioritize that connection to go to work and connect with our coworkers in our company, and takes away that connection from our family. Like, which is more important? A daily connection with your family and a digital connection with your occupation, or a physical connection with your occupation?
Yeah, I get caught in this thinking all the time, and I'll just go back to it. Why can't you have both?
Yeah, I guess.
Why can't you have a great in-person connection with your family and a great in-person connection
With your work.
with the way that you earn a living? Right? Like, I think that should be possible.
I think you can have both.
I think you should have both, and I think that's what you should strive for. And yeah, like I said, I said a few minutes, maybe an hour ago now, I don't know. It's something that I'm thinking about. But like I mentioned, the weeks that I'm in Bozeman, I'm super fortunate how much time I get to spend with my family. So I think you should, again, it's my opinion, you should strive to have both a strong connection at work and a strong connection with the family. And I think it should be achievable.
I think if you have too much of one, you won't appreciate it anyway. If you were with your family every day for 24 hours for the end of eternity, you'd probably fucking hate them.
Yeah.
And same thing if you were at work every day.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not good. It's not good for you.
I agree.
Like, I think that variety is important, and interacting with a wide range of people on a wide range of topics and going through some challenge is important. Like, fuck. I mean, Tim, you know that. You and I don't know all your upbringing, but you lived on a farm and were homeschooled. I mean, you probably spent a lot of time with the same few people. And at least I've heard on some of your podcasts, you've benefited from moving in a big way. And there's nothing against, I'm sure that's not me stating, anything bad about your upbringing. I've just heard you state that, like, your eyes were opened when you moved to Seattle and then moved here in a big way. And I think that's important. So not just for you, but for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's important that we all learn how other people raise their kids. And you learn that from work conversations and the people you develop connections with, right? So.
You guys want to hear something wild I did like 2 days ago? I had like 20 pages of just essentially journaling from like the last 2 years. Copy and pasted the whole thing, put it into ChatGPT, and asked it to give me like its analysis
You
of it.
journal on the computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
It said you're a kook.
It was mind blowing because
What did it say?
I don't want to get into it, and we don't have time to right now. But to read like 20 pages worth would be like a whole emotional journey for
The
me.
conclusion was,
Yeah.
Tim, you got to stop them psychedelics.
Yeah. Oh, it did talk about that. But it was like I just like for if you write a lot, especially personal stuff, if you journal stuff or keep any kind of diary, to have something analyze it that fast and just like give you a breakdown. And
You were fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's like, dude, what are you doing with all those women at the same time? No wonder you're tired, man. Anyway, it blew my mind, and I'm just saying, like, try it out when next time you're bored.
Cool.
That's
Can you tell us what it
hilarious.
said?
Oh no, it's like a lot of it's very personal. It's just like,
Oh, okay.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to tell us what it said.
No, maybe at some point, not today.
Not on the podcast.
No, and it's like
He's got to sign the waiver.
You got to roll in a few minutes, and I
do.
just wanted to say it because like it was.
That's funny.
I was very intrigued by it, so I was like, damn, this is an interesting piece of technology to implement into the way you make life decisions. Like, hey, do you see any patterns in my thinking? Do you see any patterns in the way of like I approach life? Say, hey, what you tend to do a lot is this, and when you talk a lot, like you talk about yourself in this way. And I'm like, shit, I do. Like, it's so objective that it's kind of fascinating, and it was, it's like just personal shit that's been going on and stuff that's gone on in my whole life, and it was like when I wrote this or writing this, I'm like, this is my memoir. Like, this is my reciting my life from earliest existence to now.
Yeah.
And to have this thing condense it into a couple paragraphs. And it's like, here's a few key points, things you could work on. Like, it sounds like you're trying to work on this. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, I could go to therapy for 15 years or this thing just, everyone's out of a job. That's all I'm saying. We got to have Cole do an intro. You got anything else you need to put out there?
I don't know that this podcast was that interesting, so I don't know that you need.
I think the last 40 minutes were just the discussion around, working remote or not, and